Hey, so hi everyone. It's so great to be here. As we presented, we're all part of NoVasta, which our founding chapter is in Boston, Massachusetts, located in the United States. Here's our board. The three of us are presenting today, but we also have three other members, including Sausaine, Emma, and Ariani.
All right, so firstly, what is NoVasta? We're an organization led by high school students who are dedicated to civic action and public service. Our goal is to bridge the gap between food waste and insecurity in our communities, as there are unfortunately very many people who don't have access to the food they need, but at the same time, very large amounts of food are wasted every day throughout our world.
Yeah, so we're currently established as an organization and as community service clubs throughout multiple high schools in Massachusetts. And we also have chapters established in New York City, Long Island, Chicago, and the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. Further, we're currently in the works of expansion to more chapters not only in the United States, but Spain and the UAE as well through student networking and partnerships with other youth-led nonprofit organizations. And through our consistent efforts since our founding as of 2024, April, our organization has donated over 600 meals and that would have otherwise been sent to landfills, and instead to shelters around the greater Boston area. So what is this problem we're tackling today? Now, 1 out of every 6 households actually do not know where their next meal is coming from, while tons and tons of perfectly edible food is thrown away each day. Now, this is the harsh reality in not only our founding chapter of Boston, Massachusetts, but our country and our world right now as well. Where as of 2024, around 32% of their adults have reported food insecurity. And the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic certainly worsened the situation as well, and furthering food insecurity rates, which have been rising since March of 2023. Now, this problem still continues to perpetuate cycles of poverty and economic disparity.
Yeah, so on the other end of that spectrum, we're also tackling the ongoing problem of food waste. Every day, billions of meals are wasted, which amounts to over $1 trillion annually. And this waste is not just the loss of food, but it's also a loss of the resources that are put in to make it, such as water, land, and labor, which intensifies the environmental strain that food waste has. And because the production of food is high resource intensive, when it's wasted, the resources are very much so squandered, and food decomposes in landfills, emitting methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas that has contributed to 8 to 10% of global emissions. So the paradox is particularly stark given that while 733 million globally are currently facing food insecurity, the world is wasting 1.5 billion metric tons of food. And that's according to the UN Environment Programme's 2024 food report. When in this pie chart, you can see that food service plays a very large component in that food wasted, which is what we aim to tackle. So food waste includes restaurants, cafes, and other modes of food providing.
So NoVasta aims to enable the youth within our communities to take action against these issues of food waste and hunger. We have so many young people who help provide food to individuals and families that are living in shelters and don't have access to the food they require. And by donating this food to them, we're also preventing it from being carelessly wasted and sent to landfills. And through achieving these zero waste and zero hunger initiatives, we also want to push for policy change to incentivize donation and decrease food waste on a larger legal scale. In the photo above, we were fortunately able to meet with a Harvard University professor in order to discuss food law and discuss steps toward policy change.
Now, our organization is centered around the idea of mobilizing youth to be making productive change in our communities. And we really do want to solidify the idea that you can never be too young to make an impact. For instance, our organization is a student-led and run organization, and we have volunteers of all ages that are able to contribute.
So, a big part of that process of mobilizing youth is getting more youth engaged in different parts of the world. And For example, here we have how to start a chapter. So for anyone interested in starting a chapter, whether that be any of our viewers or anyone here in this Zoom meeting as well, you can fill out the QR code in the last slide of our presentation, which will give you a detailed guide of not only what we talked about, but steps on how to make partnerships, form donations, and get people involved. I think it's really vital to have a lot of youth involved. And if they do start a chapter, you can mobilize your own communities in order to making a greater impact. And you can also visit our website, which is novastaboston.org, to learn more. We have some more details and images there and more modes of contact. We also use social media as a big youth engagement platform, and you can follow us at NoVasta Boston. We also have our New York City, DMV, and Chicago handles, which you will find through the NoVasta Boston account. And then you can also visit our page on LinkedIn if you are looking to network with us, or our link tree, which provides all of our platforms just listed.
Yeah, and this is a QR code for a form if you are interested in starting a chapter in your hometown. And yeah, again, you can also visit novastaboston.org. But yeah, thank you.
And please feel free to reach out with any questions.
And we just wanted to add, it's such a pleasure to be here. I think our goal really with NoVasta is getting the word out there and getting more youth engaged and involved. So the fact that we have this platform to present is much appreciated. We're very grateful. Thank you all.
Thank you. Wonderful work, all of you.
Thank you.
So can you talk a little bit more about the policy work? What kinds of policy changes, what kinds of issues do you think that you're facing that could be solved with policy?
Yeah, definitely. So, we do believe that policy is the most can make the most long-standing impact, and make change on a greater scale. So, currently, there are acts like the Emerson Act, which are protect any liabilities that might arise from donations, to shelters or churches. However, we are working towards bills and laws that would incentivize these restaurants to be donating on their own.
Additionally, in Boston, there is the food waste ban, which requires certain restaurants or chains that make over a certain amount of food to donate their food or to not throw it away. So making that donation component really implemented into restaurants across the nation would be something we hope to see that would be done with policy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and it's really a good presentation. And I have one question. Like, for example, I know that like sometimes like doing community service sometimes pretty hard. So like, do you guys like have some hard like moments, like some problems during these process?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we've had to work around is forming partnerships, especially with restaurants, as sometimes they're unaware of food law and policy and certain acts that are in place, and they're a bit afraid to kind of, sorry, they're a bit afraid to partner with us as they just don't. They're just reluctant because they're unsure of the consequences that they could face. But just being persistent and really letting them know that there's no way they could be held accountable for any issues that would result from donating food, and also just letting them know that we really are just trying to help them and promote a good cause and not like make them do any extra work or anything like that.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
on to another aspect of that, we've also faced issues in trying to mobilize the youth. I think a lot of the time, um, a lot of kids don't think it's accessible as it is to be making this change and making donations, but I think we've made a lot of efforts to try to show them that making change, doing community service and volunteering is really accessible, and just showing them how to do it has been really beneficial.
And I
Yeah.
think the biggest benefit that these individuals and students that we have had as our volunteers reap is how good they feel after doing it. Because when we donate to the shelters, you can see the people's faces when they're gratified with the food that we're giving them, or even the restaurants that are so willing to give us the food because they themselves feel guilty for throwing it away. So I think just reminding people of the moral impact that it can have as well has been very valuable.
Mhm. Thank you for answering the question. I hope the group can grow bigger.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies, for a great presentation. Your work is so important, and I think it's a big problem that we need to tackle together, and you need to continue to spread the word as you're doing. I I think it's great that you're inspiring younger kids, and it's not just for high school kids too. I think, inspiring younger kids to help you, or they're the ones that are going to be continuing it. So I think that's wonderful too. I had a question from YouTube that wanted to know what your most impactful achievement so far was. What do you think about that?
I think there isn't really one big concentrated achievement, but I think it is those little moments and the accumulation of all these little moments when we do hear back from our volunteers about their experience. I think that's just been really rewarding to all of us. Yeah.
I think also one thing has been our ability to expand. I moved to the DMV coincidentally, and I ended up starting a chapter here. So I think that was just luck on our side, pushing us to expand our mission. And through that, we were also able to expand to our New York City and Chicago chapters. So I think that's our biggest biggest moment, I think, is really being able to see how far reaching and the potential that our organization has.
Yeah, and a really significant result of this expansion has been just community building throughout all these different areas with restaurants, with shelters, with the people that are receiving our food, and with our volunteers. It's been such a great way to make connections, and through those connections, have so many meals be donated instead of wasted.
That's really awesome. Great job. Another one, another good idea for you on YouTube. Do you have any plans to publish a daily, weekly, or monthly report where food waste avoided and number of hungry people fed?
Yeah, we do. So our website is currently undergoing some changes, and we will have an update section or updates section on our website where we'll talk about events, meetings with different institutes, and also the progress that our volunteers have made. Yeah, so you'll be able to see that all there pretty soon.
I think definitely because a large component of our organization has been educating. We really work towards policy and advocacy, not only the donation side. So I think that's definitely something we'll see in the long term. And as Ariana said, our website is currently undergoing some major changes. So we'll be seeing that in the future.
Yeah, I think that would really help. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, this is really a really good problem to solve, and that's wonderful to see you inspiring everybody and other youth to do that. How can you talk a little bit more about like logistics? How do you handle that between, restaurants and getting food to the shelters? What do restaurants do in the process, or how do you manage all the logistics around that?
Yeah, so we have partnerships with restaurants throughout our communities. Like, for example, in Boston, we have different neighborhoods and we have partnerships in a lot of different neighborhoods. So, really, at the end of the day, when restaurants would typically be closing and getting rid of the food that they don't sell, we have volunteers that go there and pick the food up. It's really not a difficult process for volunteers or for the restaurants. They really just package their excess food and give it to us, and then our volunteers um, on their own get it to shelters or churches or food kitchens that we also have partnerships with, and they just drop it off.
Yeah, and within that, that has to be within 4 hours, or else the food has to be regulated, which just means that it can't spoil or rot. So we just make sure that our volunteers are aware of that food of that 4-hour policy. And additionally, if restaurants close really late at night, we might ask them to leave it overnight for us to pick up so they regulate the temperature themselves and we come pick it up and transport it in the morning. So the process has been relatively simple. It takes almost 10 to 15 minutes, give or take transport time, but actually picking up the food and delivering it has not been that much of a struggle.
And so do the shelters also have to then store it at the right, at the regulated temperatures for the next, or is it they have to consume it within a certain amount of time?
Yeah, so we do generally donate it to shelters or churches or institutions that do have the means to
Mhm.
restore or like store it themselves. But yeah.
And sometimes the food is consumed immediately because some of these shelters are open just within a specific time where community meals occur. So we haven't faced any problems with that, luckily.
And have you considered even grocery store chains? Because I know they end up wasting a lot of food too. And have you built any partnerships with them?
We're definitely looking to expand our impact into reducing grocery stores waste, but I think there is a longer process in partnering and connecting with them, but we're definitely looking towards expanding there as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sure that'll come soon.
Yeah, most
Thank
definitely.
you.
Nice.
I think just one other point we would love to emphasize is don't be afraid to reach out to us. I think we're really willing to collaborate with any like-minded youth, especially if you have an organization already that's working towards the same problem. And we're working on forming an alliance as well. So you can join that. Just any way that you can connect with us, we'd love for you to do so because smaller steps do make a larger imprint and of change. So yeah, just don't feel free to reach out to us. We're always open to talking, and we'd love to have you start a chapter of NoVasta.
Wonderful. I hope you find more people to join.
Thank you.
Do you also have any guidance and things for students in high school to start chapters of their own inside as clubs?
Yeah,
Mm.
so
Yeah.
we're we're
Maybe
currently
that's,
as
yeah.
sorry.
Go
Um,
ahead.
we're currently established across Massachusetts high schools and Maryland high schools as a club of NoVasta. So I think that's a really easy way for students to get involved through their local high schools. And we have a very detailed guide. If anyone's interested, if they fill out the interest form that we have the QR code to, you can get that guide sent to you. We just have the specific steps, what you should do. I think the main part is just having a team to start it with, and then after that, administering community service hours might be a key component, etc.
Very nice. I think we still have some time before the next
Yeah, we still
presentation.
have
Is that
some
correct,
time if
Amy?
you want to throw more ideas out there or promote. I think you just need to get your website up and keep spreading the word as you're doing. Um, I think there are people listening to you today from YouTube and that will watch this video afterwards, that will want to get in contact with you. So I think anything else you can tell us about, you know, the rewarding experience of doing it and the people that you have involved. And as you said, even, if people can't volunteer large amounts of time, even those little things and those little times of just doing it once, how it can be so powerful and helpful to those around them.
Yeah, I think something really important is, or something that we try to promote is just to like encourage people to look for opportunities wherever they can. It doesn't necessarily just have to be from a certain restaurant to a certain shelter. Just really any chance you see food waste and you feel that you could reduce that or prevent it, is so helpful. Like, for just an example of this is one time a few of our board members were at an environmental summit, and there was so much leftover food. And at the time, we were still just beginning to get established. And this obviously wasn't a restaurant that we would regularly donate from, but we just kind of made it happen so that that food, we transported it to a shelter. And so, really, again, just kind of taking any opportunity you can to decrease food waste.
Yeah, and another example, I think Ariana can talk about one of our volunteers who went to the shelter and it was closed. Um, if you would like to talk about that.
Yeah, so we did have one of our volunteers, um, not only looking towards opportunities to get food from, but also just looking for any opportunity of someone who is in need of food. Like it doesn't have to be a certain institution as well. So we did have a volunteer who got food from the restaurant, however, wasn't able to donate it to the shelter as it was closed. And she did find people out in public who were in need of additional food resources, and she was able to provide that. So, yeah.
I think that Amy, like you said, even the small amounts of donating, or even if someone isn't able to donate a large amount of food or dedicate a large amount of time, a small sum of food goes a long way, especially like I mentioned in the presentation in terms of food waste. All of this food being accumulated, it's someone saying, "Oh, I'm only throwing away a small portion of my food," and then that accumulates into large amounts of food that emit so much global waste. And we can see the impacts of global warming as a result of those global emissions right now. So I think doing your part um, as to reduce those global emissions and to reduce the current food waste and insecurity crisis would go a long way.
Yeah, you've got a lot of work cut out for you, especially with even the policy. And I think the policy is really important too. As a teacher, like I see so much food wasted off of kids' lunches, even. And I think of that constantly. Like, I wish I could take the leftovers right there and go donate them somewhere. And you're making me even more aware because I see that every day. And I'm like, okay, maybe I really need to be doing something about this. So you're having an impact even on me right now. So maybe I'll look into that and see what we can do about that food that they don't eat.
Yeah, we're so
Yeah.
happy to hear that. But yeah, we really do want to focus on like holistic change, and change isn't really done just through one means. Like we do it through donations and policy and also advocacy as well. So yeah, just finding opportunities in every way and in every field.
And I think what really struck us as an organization in the beginning is the fact that the irony in it, the paradox that so much food is wasted, yet so many people are hungry all over the world. And I feel like that just doesn't make sense. And it's something that has a solution, but is not being utilized. Um, so
You're absolutely right. And I agree with Amy. I think I'm getting inspired. And I think that's, you all presenting at events like this and other places and spreading the word really helps just change the mindset. Right now, I'm sure after this, I'm going to be a lot more mindful about, am I wasting any food and can I stop that wastage? I think similar to how, there was a lot of awareness and eventually everybody started, or, things about recycling and being more mindful about that. I think this is another area that you're really rightly pointing out, that it's also, once you start thinking about small steps, it shifts your mindset. And that's really important too.
that's
It's
lovely
great
to
work.
hear. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
I think the food pantries are wonderful and people donating food, but I love what you're doing because you're taking what's already there that's just being thrown away and making sure that it goes to people that are hungry. And so, it's not about making more food and donating it, although we still need that. That's very important. But we have a lot of food that's right there just being thrown in the trash. And, I think that's wonderful because it takes time for you to get at the shelters and everything, but it's sustainable, it's saving the environment and what you're doing.
Thank you.
so
Yeah,
much.
exactly. Yeah, a lot of the times like innovation and like the solution to a problem is right in front of our eyes, and we really just wanted to bridge that gap.
Yeah, and that really ties into our mission statement, turning excess into access, which we really do hope is reflected through our organization's work.
So when it comes to policy, are there different regulations in different states, or is there more standard national regulations? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Emerson Act that Arianna spoke of is a federal ban in the United States. So that is a federal regulation in the United States. So that just means that restaurants won't be held liable for any food that they donate if that makes anyone sick. But specific acts like the food waste ban of Massachusetts is not necessarily applicable in the state that I'm currently in of Maryland. So we do need to do our own research in order to see what legislation we can use to help aid our organization's mission and what legislation needs work and that we can advocate for policy change.
Yeah, definitely. I think in every respective state or even in a different country, I think we just need to be looking out for the opportunities and movements that are already like in place and joining them.
Yes, but at the same time, our food standards and regulations as an organization do stay the same across all states. Like, we, of course, always want to ensure that food is regulated by temperature and delivered within a certain amount of time, and that it's up to a certain standard. And really, what we go by is we don't donate anything that we ourselves wouldn't feel comfortable eating.
That definitely makes sense.
Okay, I think we're just about out of time. We have a new host with us, and but before he introduces himself, I'll say thank you again, ladies, for your great work. It's it's been an inspiration. I think you've touched a lot of people's hearts today. I think you're making people a lot more aware. And, I think there'll be people reaching out to you. And even those that don't reach out to you, I think they're going to be a little bit more aware of what's on their plate and making sure that they're not wasting food and it's going to the right place. Thanks for making a difference.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yes,
That means
thank
so much. It
you.
was a pleasure to present here, and all your questions were very wonderful. Thank
You,
you
and we're
all.
Thank you for this
so glad to have
opportunity.
inspired. Thank you.
Thank you so
We hope you
much.
come back on the next one and give us an update.
We
Yeah,
definitely
keep up the
will.
great work.